Hey everyone, and today I'm with a very special guest and someone who I've waited probably months to talk to. Ladies and gentlemen, the lovely Amy Campbell. Amy, how are you doing today?
I'm very good, thank you. How are you?
I'm doing pretty good. It's a little bit late here, as you can tell outside, but it's totally fine. So, first off, I just want to ask for you to introduce yourself to people home, tell them who you are and what you're about.
Sure. I am Amy Campbell, also known as Sass Queen Amy. I'm involved in a couple of different aspects of the gaming industry. So primarily I do reviews, interviews, and opinion pieces as a games writer, both on my personal channel and freelance, though that's mostly for The Escapist. And I also work as a community manager at a studio here in New Zealand.
Nice. That's awesome. I actually didn't even know I thought the Escapist was like your main position. I didn't know you did for like the studio stuff. That's actually really cool. How did you get to the studio stuff, if you don't mind me asking then?
Yeah, absolutely. So I can go through kind of the whole story of how I've kind of ended up where I am, whilst I can't say the name of the studio because we're not technically making it public, but like it is known that I work in development now. So my goal was always to end up in game development, and one day I'd love to end up as a producer. But through my studies and things like that, I realized I needed to do as much as I could. Like it's such a difficult an industry to find jobs. So for me, I was like, what else can I be doing to better my chances of finding work? So I studied game design back in Australia. And then I moved to university and did digital media. So learning about games history, game development. And then at uni, there was still a games focus, but more on kind of content creation in a way. So I did things from like motion capture animation to like editing videos and doing let's play like 5-minute videos and things. So lots of really cool stuff like that. And part of that was having to create a website. And initially I did mine on fitness. And then I realized, what if I set up a gaming site and started writing some opinions and doing some more critical thinking about games? That would be a really good opportunity for me to learn more and also just start putting together a bit more of a portfolio to say, hey, look, like I'm really interested in games. I'm a good candidate. And that led to me creating a little blog that was called The Sass Effect. It's probably hidden away somewhere.
That's the best name ever, though, hands down. That's the best name
and
ever.
I photoshopped myself onto Commander Shepard as well. It was a really bad Photoshop, but I did, and it was really good. And so I just wrote some bits and pieces there. And not long after, someone posted for a site called Only SP. And so I just sent some samples there and started working for them shortly after. And Only SP was actually created by Nick Calandra, who is now the editor-in-chief of The Escapist. And so we were familiar with each other through that. And about a year after, Nick messaged me and said, I'd be really keen to get you on The Escapist doing some reviews and potentially some live streams. Would you can you send me some samples of your video editing? Is that something you'd be interested in? And so I jumped at the chance. I said, like, of course, like what an amazing opportunity to do that. And through that, it's then kind of enabled me to find enough of my footing that when a particular job came up a few months ago, I just started crying because I could get that. It's no small studio, I'll say that. And so I applied and went through the interview process that was quite lengthy and ended up in a position that was a bit of a dream job for me. So yeah, I'm doing both of those things at the moment. It's a very long-winded story, but it's worth kind of saying that I started in writing and like design and writing and like how that's kind of ended me up here.
So first off, I'm so happy for you because I knew you had mentioned a little bit in some of your casual conversation on your live streams about that. So that's awesome that you have this opportunity, and I'm super happy for you. So I kind of want to reel it back a little bit. Take us through what a day-to-day life is for Amy Campbell, and this doesn't have to be gaming. This could just be anything. Like, just basically show the audience at home, like, hey, well, I'm kind of not a big. Well, that sounded bad. Well, I'm a bigger deal in the games industry. I'm also just a normal human being, you know.
I love this question because I'm not like, this is the thing for me, and I think the thing that is really crucial to, I think, my perception of myself in the industry. So I'm a group fitness instructor as well. I know I'm a mixed, like I'm the start of a joke. It's like a group fitness instructor, a game developer, and a journalist walk into a bar and she orders a drink. Her name was Amy. And so for me, like my day to day is pretty much, not every day, but most days I'll get up and go to the gym either to teach a class or like have a PT session. If I don't do that, I'll go into work early so I can go to the gym during the day. And then, so I'll generally go to the gym at least once or twice a day, go to work, and then I'll either come home and if I haven't got, like if I've gone to the gym after that, like my days are really not that exciting. I'll either like make my dinner and then we'll either just play something to unwind, which at the moment is Valhalla. I'm slowly making my way through that, or stream, or play the next game I need to review / write or edit the review. That's pretty much the way every single one of my days goes.
That
But
I can relate.
if I can harken to that a little bit more, like I'm nobody, because like at the gym people are like, what's games, like what is a game, like no one knows or cares what I'm talking about. So to me it's this fabulous intersection with, and like even at work I'll be like, oh, like I'm going to go teach a group fitness class, and they're like, what is that? So it's really nice to have these two kind of really separate parts of my life that do keep you very grounded in the fact that it's all relative. It's all completely relative.
Yeah, no, that's something I can relate to. Is like in the short, I've been, it's been a year that I've been doing like games reviews and stuff like that, and it's interesting to like talk to people about, and they're like, what is the like, what is that? Like, what does that
What is it?
mean? It's like the whole other world. So that's cool that you do have that separation though, in a sense. Now I want to ask, you kind of hit on it a little bit earlier, but I'll go a little bit more of a deep dive. So I was going to ask, how did you end up in the games industry? I want to ask what sparked your want to be in the games industry. What was like the key moment of your life where it's like, this is what I want to be a part of?
Okay, I'm such a mixed bag, and again, I'm giving you a lot of information here that's so
okay.
irrelevant to games. But so I was, after I'd finished high school, like the high school equivalent in Australia, I took a gap year and I deferred a degree, a double degree in marketing and advertising. But I also, the other thing that I auditioned and got into was a musical theatre degree. So I'd gotten into both of those things because in my head, my pathway was always like performance and musical theatre. And I deferred them both and was just going to the gym and just working part-time while I wanted to figure out what I was doing. Ended up doing my certificate like 3 and 4 in fitness. My 4 came much later, but I started doing fitness at the time, like just to study and keep my mind active. But there was just one random day I watched a documentary on Netflix. I can't even remember what it was called. And it talked about like the history of games, like you're very stereotypical, like the same things they always show and tell about like the rise of Sega and Nintendo and all of those bits and pieces. But I remember just sitting there dumbfounded at the end, and I went, people make games. It had never occurred to me before, as someone that her whole life had spent playing games and being involved in that. It still didn't quite hit me. And then I started looking it up and I'm like, whoa, there's these things called like designers and producers. And I just had no concept of that. And so I applied for the school that did that and got in and did that. But it was kind of this moment of realization of people make games. And when I went to the school to kind of ask them questions and be like, what does this mean? Like, what is it like in games? And the big thing that stood out to me was the teacher that I then had. His background was acting and directing. And I do remember one conversation he had with me, and to me, it made me feel really validated because I'd always believed that creativity and wanting to be creative it doesn't have to be restricted to the one medium. Why can't we share stories through games? And that's why I've always loved them so much, is they have so much power. And just hearing a teacher say, Amy, it doesn't matter what the medium is, like, we are storytellers. And just to hear that from Rick really meant a lot to me, because it was one of the first examples I'd seen of someone else with a similar background to my own saying, this is a really normal thing. And so to me, those were kind of like the two big moments of, it's an ability to tell stories and they're really powerful. And the other thing that drives me with it is, like I've said, like when I go to the gym and teach with all of my friends, people don't really know what I'm talking about. And growing up, I didn't have like any friends that were women that played games. And so I wanted to help try and change that and see it become more inclusive for everyone. And I'm seeing so many amazing people push for that at the moment. And I'm really excited to see, I feel like we're at the turning point. And we're about to overflow and it become something that everyone can enjoy. And I'm really excited about that and so grateful to be a part of it at this point in time.
Yeah, I 100% agree with that. As someone who, like, I'll kind of double down with your points here. As someone who's talked about in classes this idea of games being more than just something you play, because that's something I had this hard realization. I remember I was playing BioShock Infinite for the first time, and that was the moment where when I completed, I was like, this is art. Like, this is, I feel emotions for these characters. I have a connection to these stories. And it's something I've talked about with some friends and some professors here of like reading a book, watching a movie, those are great. You build connections, but they're a little bit more passive in a sense. With gaming, you're in the saddle. You're fully in control of it. And that's something that I hold near and dear to my heart, is like, it's a medium that's kind of still unknown in a lot of ways and can grow. And it's something that with every new generation, every new game that comes out, I get more and more excited for. And to go to your second point, I'm excited because we are at that turning point and I can see it, and I can't wait for it, because I love seeing the, like, it open up and be like any story can be made, and just the fact that I can play a story that isn't written for me but still love and enjoy it.
Yeah, absolutely.
Hits so home and it hits to my heart. I love that. I can't wait. We're at that turning point, like you said, and I can't wait for it to continue to turn and just see the next step. So I want to ask, because this is something I've been curious of personally, how did you end up with the crown of SAS Queen?
Well, it was funny because I logged into something the other day and I was looking at it and I was thinking to myself, this feels very early for it to have had, like, it was not an old account, but like one of the earlier accounts I would have made for something. I remember staring at it going, it was SAS Queen. Honestly, I don't know. Like, that's the thing. I don't know. And I keep questioning myself and going, maybe it's not accurate. Maybe it needs to change. Because I'm very sassy in real life, but I actually find I'm not so online. And I think I just called myself that. Like, when I needed to make the account, I was like, I don't know. And so I just went, I'm a bit sassy. SAS Queen Amy. I think I just went with it. But it certainly didn't come from anyone or anything. Like, I only started playing multiplayer games 3 years ago.
Oh, wow.
3 years ago. Like, I'm still quite fresh to multiplayer games. Yeah, just over 3 years ago. So it certainly didn't come from like any conversations like, damn, you're like going for them. I'm like, no, it was just something I gave myself.
Hey, that's totally fine. I was just curious because I was like, most people, they have like a crazy backstory on how they ended up, like, way back in ye olden days of 2007. No, it was like early 2010s ish.
The
like,
Wild West.
Basically, my old gamer tag was been jamming out 23 because it was a nickname.
That's good. That's good.
I outgrew it though, as a thing. So it was like, it was good for its time, but it's like, it's time to put that to bed and move on to different things. So I was just curious if there was some crazy backstory and whatnot on that. So I just wanted to check.
Admittedly, like, I ask Nick, Jesse, and that all the time, and theirs are always interesting. Mine's not. I'm just like, I don't know. I just kind of went with it.
I think it's great. I think it works perfect, honestly. Like,
Thank you.
From what I've seen from your personal streams, like, it fits you to the T perfectly. So
Thank you. I appreciate that.
you're welcome. I want to ask. So I wrote this question kind of in a weird way. Looking back on it, I kind of regret it. So I said, "What is it like to end up at a legendary outlet like the Escapist?" I say that, but I also believe that I feel like when I talk about the Escapist, not all the people actually know about it. I know about it because it's an older site to my knowledge and from what I've been able to
Yes.
gather, and I'm familiar with it from Yahtzee and his work and his classic like zero punctuation reviews.
Yep.
So I want to ask, what's it like to be a part of that team? Because I know it's a fairly larger team, and I know you all are fairly spread out to my knowledge. So
It's very strange, and it's interesting because, like, to me, I was like, whoa, like the Escapist. And admittedly, I knew nothing about it. And finding out more and different things about the history and the background, it's certainly had a very checkered history. One of which, because again, my experiences with it had always been through the lens of Nick, who has no tolerance for that kind of background that it has. And so it's a hard one. It's a hard question to answer because to me it is like very surreal, like particularly when like Jack or Yacht's messaging like, oh, can you come on the stream tomorrow or something like that. Like to me that is still really, oh, me. And like even when we moved, so when I started my new job and we had to move the game night streams, in my head I was like I'm no longer going to be doing it. Like it's a Sunday night thing, it's over. And when Nick immediately turned around and said, oh, well, no, like, are the rest of you all free on like Saturday night? We'll just do it then if you can still make it. And that to me I was really shocked because I'm like, well, this is a bigger outlet. Like, it's not about me. But so kind that I was considered a part of a team in that way. And so that meant a lot. It's definitely strange though, and people love to come for you.
I'm sure.
We had a very interesting stream just prior to this. So normally I would stream myself after this, but just after that, I'm like, I cannot today. So it can be tough at times, and people have a certain perception, and I grapple with that a lot. I grapple with that a lot is, do people immediately think I'm invalidated for a history that's not the current truth? Does my work still hold the same value? I'm just some random with opinions, as we all are. But yeah, so it's a hard question to answer just because it's something I actually do think about a lot in terms of the image of that and what that means and how it's reflected back, true or not. It's interesting. It's a very interesting thought process that goes on in my head about it. But it's definitely incredible, and it has introduced me to so many incredible people and has allowed me to create a community that I could have never expected. And so I'm really grateful for that because it's given me so many opportunities that I never would have had. And so I am unbelievably grateful for that.
Yeah, no, we've talked about not in this situation, but like off like camera and just like casually all across the internet about like the unfortunate world that is the internet, and that actually leads. So we did get a fan question, and I will lead with that. Genosaurus95 on one of our Twitch streams asked a really good question, and it was basically, what is your least favorite and favorite part about working in the games industry, especially from the female perspective and of being a woman?
Absolutely. The hardest thing is, admittedly, I don't cop anything in comparison to what I see. My anger and my pain there is that there is so much directed at so many incredible women. That's what makes me angry. And I'm not someone that is very good with social media or good at social media. Despite being a very extroverted person, I don't feel the value in me putting my voice out there, and I worry a lot. And so I get really angry and frustrated when I see how much pain so many women have to get put through in this industry. That is my biggest anger and my biggest frustration. And I want to see that kicked in the butt as soon as possible. Like, that to me is the worst part, is just how awful we've allowed ourselves to become about it, because we put it under the guise of critique and criticism, and rarely is it. And that, to me, I find very difficult, because there is a time and a place for that, and it's absolutely necessary. But we need to uplift more voices. That's, to me, the biggest thing. The most incredible thing is knowing how much, on the exact flip side, is knowing how much utter joy it can bring people. And like, I got to be involved with like part of an announcement for the game I work on, and just seeing how excited that makes people, and now seeing the responses to that content is just so incredible and wonderful, and is such a magical thing that I know so few people in the world do get to be involved in, is creating that sense of magic for people, because I do believe it is magic. And so that, to me, is the best part. And the other part is definitely the hardest part. Admittedly, I'm very lucky. I have received significantly less of that than so many others, but that doesn't make it okay at all.
Oh, yeah. I 100% agree with that. I know back in the fall, we did a women's panel, like just women that were in the games industry, that worked there, that created games, that were in education, that were just streamers, and just hearing their personal side of it and hearing like their thoughts and perspectives on things was, number one, it was hard to hear like just that, the bad, but hearing their opinions and hearing the good, like it was like this a roller coaster of emotion of, this is horrible, but hearing what they had to say was like, this is wonderful. Like, this is amazing to hear what they have to say, what they want to do. And so I can empathize with that. And I'm 100% agree with you on that. So switching it over to a little bit of a lighter topic though, I want to ask, so you got a really cool opportunity that you won a competition, in a sense, to be a part of Lenovo with an e-apprenticeship. Tell me about that.
Yeah, so a friend sent it through to me. So it was an Australia-New Zealand competition. A friend sent it through, and I looked at this thing. And so essentially what the apprenticeship was an opportunity to discuss and have some mentorship sessions with people from a variety of different aspects of the gaming industry. So we had Stephanie Hex Bendixson, who is an Australian personality that was on a very long-running Australian gaming TV show, both for adults and kids, who is now a streamer. And she's absolutely fantastic, like such a brilliant voice for us to have had in the Aussie industry. So there was Steph, there was Ashley Ringrose, who runs SMG Studios in Melbourne, who their most recent game released was Moving Out, which funnily enough I reviewed. I don't know if Ash ever picked up on that. And Ash and I have talked a lot. And I don't know if he's ever actually picked up on the fact that I did the review for The Escapist. It was good because I gave it a really good review, which was actually, funnily enough, quite controversial in the comments. I was like, well, I had nothing negative to say. Like, what did you want? So it was Ash thing. There was Pete Corelli, who was a radio presenter and game website runner, and like he was very much my kind of person. So he ran a gaming website, a esports team, and like all these other bits and pieces in Western Australia. And he's a really awesome dude. Like he's awesome. And there was also Tennille from the University of Queensland Union Esports. And in addition to that was getting geared up with a new laptop, and as well as some money to kind of help push in that direction for games, wherever that may be. And so we just had to submit a video in terms of why we should be the first apprentice. And I can't even remember exactly what I said, but it was something along the lines of like, I have done as much as I can to try and get my foot in the door and find my feet. And like this opportunity would go such a long way to actually help me take those steps and actually find who I want to be. And I was really worried because I felt like I'd already come too far. I'm like, oh, well, I'm already writing. Like, why would they pick me? And when I got that call, it's so surreal because it's the type of thing that happens to anyone but you. And to be recognized for the reasons I was hoping I would meant so much. And just to have had the opportunities I've had with all of them has just been unreal. And Ash from SMG gave me so much incredible advice, and like we'll DM on Twitter stuff, like because I emailed them, so they're all aware of the job I'm doing and what studio it's at, and they're like, Amy, like this is massive, um like you are so going to just keep going, and just to have those people have that confidence in you and say I like, and for Ash to be like, I still want you to look at this and this because you'd be an amazing producer, and it just means the absolute world. So it was an opportunity that just in a time when I was thinking maybe I can't do it, maybe I'm too far gone, maybe I don't know, it helped me refine my direction and where I wanted to go with it. And I am so grateful for that. And again, the people I got to meet with it and stay in contact with.
Yeah, no, that I remember hearing that you got accepted to that, and I was excited for you because kind of going back too, it's interesting telling people like, hey, how did you find Amy Campbell? And it's like, oh, we kind of reviewed similar games in a sense, and that's how we kind of crossed paths. And they're like,
That's funny.
this person's all the way across the world, and I'm like, yeah, that's just kind of how it works at the end of the day. So I can very much relate to that. Can I ask what like at this apprenticeship, what was it like? What were some of your tasks? What was like just a day-to-day basis of what you did?
So mostly it was just the mentorship. Like the apprentice is very much a very nice title. So it was a lot of so it was mostly the mentorship. Again, because it was going, we don't kind of know which way you're going to want to go with this. So they've actually done a second one recently and awarded a second apprenticeship. But that one was streamer focused. So someone that they wanted to help kick off like a full-time gig in streaming. And that's so awesome. Their name's Aaron Aztec. So really excited to see where they go with that. So theirs was a completely different type of thing. Whereas for me, like Ash said to me, he's like, we will get you a job in the games industry. Like we will get you a job in game dev if that's what you want. And he said he was so excited when they chose someone that wasn't just going to be like with that side of things. Whereas that was like the thing I was really excited about, was to learn about that side of things. And so he was a great contact, and we stayed in touch a lot. So we ended up doing some other bits and pieces with each other after that. Like he would send me emails and be like, hey, I've got this thing, like, do you want to do this? So I got to help out doing some stuff on the DLC for Moving Out that is coming soon. So they announced that a couple of days ago. And so I got to help out doing some stuff with that early in the process, which was really exciting and cool and something so different for me. So that was really cool. I got to do that. He gave me so many resources and access to other people on his team to learn stuff from. I got to stream with Steph. Out of that as well, my conversations with Tennille then bore SAS School. So it was very much about me just being able to absorb as much information as I could from these people and just build a solid connection to reach out and help get me where I wanted to go. And yeah.
Nice. That actually is a perfect segue. Tell me about SAS School. I know it's like you had the questions beforehand. It's crazy, but please tell me about SAS School, because this is something that, as someone who is working in a place that has a lot of new esports stuff in it, and we're basically at the starting line, and like a lot of people don't know about it. And then I remember first seeing some of your SAS School videos that you talked about on Twitter, and I went back and watched them, and I was like, this is genius. So please tell me how that came to be and like what it meant to you to do.
Well, it was really funny. So when I did the mentorship session with Tennille and the University of Queensland, it was quite funny because it was the first person that had been kind of around my age too. And so we were just sitting talking about the stuff she did for work, and like we just got on really well. And it was funny because my first session was with Steph, and she was like, well, what do you want to do? Like, who's your audience? What are you wanting to achieve? And I really kept thinking about it, and it comes back to me going, so many women like don't know what it is, and mums in particular. I constantly think about, I still teach a lot of group fitness now, but like I was teaching a lot back home while I was studying, and I'll never forget, like parents would, like the mums would come and ask me questions because they knew they could ask. And it was someone that they weren't going to feel silly about asking because it was just their fitness instructor. And they'd be like, Amy, like, what's Discord? Like, I'm really worried. Like, my child's wanting to use it, but what is it? Or, Amy, like, they want this for Christmas, but is there anything else I need to know? And you'd be like, oh, well, actually, if you're getting it for them on PlayStation, they need to know this. And so I kind of became this source of knowledge amongst women from the gym. And the more I thought about it, I'm like, where's their resource? Where is the resource for parents who have no clue, whose kids are already so many steps ahead of them? Where's the help? Where is someone giving them that information? And admittedly, like the EB games we had, like near my house, the manager there, Steph, was unreal. Like she was amazing. And so admittedly we did have good help there, but the more I thought about it, I'm like, parents don't know. And it was interesting because it's very much what Tennille's job was setting up esports leagues in high schools and having to go in and talk to the parents and teachers and kind of assuage them and go, like, it's okay. And this is what these things are, and kind of breaking down the perceptions on games. And I had been thinking about doing a video series like the day before we had that conversation. And I said to her, like right at the end, would this be a thing that needs to happen? And she was like, I would do it myself if I had the time. If you want to, you have my support and let's do it. And so we worked together very closely to like write the script and like edit it and get feedback on it. I'd send it to my mum as well, so that we we're constantly getting lots of different like perspectives on the voice and if it made sense. But to me, it's something that's really important, is having a resource for parents to understand what games are, that they aren't just this really bad thing that the media accepts them as being, and that there are a lot of positives that go with the negatives. And so that's something I'm really passionate about and would like to do more with, admittedly. Like I hit 100 subs on YouTube, which is so little, but to me it's such a big deal. And I was like, oh, maybe I should pop out another one about, like, in particular, Australian video games ratings are really weird. And like our classification board, there's a lot of notorious stories of like Fallout 3 being refused classification and things like that. Like that's probably the most famous example, and breaking down for parents why it is, like what in Australian culture do we accept as being okay to view in these circumstances compared to the Americans and stuff like that. So yeah, it kind of came about from that conversation and us both just believing that it's a tool that needs to be out there. And I've had so much positive feedback from it too. And I'm glad it's resonated in the way I'd hoped it would. Yeah, that's
Nice.
that story.
No, yeah. I mean, I as someone who has been around games basically my whole life, like seeing your series and like it was like several videos that you did. I remember watching them and just being like, this is a really great fresh take, because I grew up someone that like gaming was a new concept to my family, and I was like one of the first people like in my community to be like, hey, I want to play games, and they're like, oh, like, well, that's bad. The media the media says this, the media says that, and it's like, yes, but also there's good to it. And I remember like you did the one on Twitch, and that was one that even to me, because like even to me personally, Twitch is just something I've started getting into in the past like year, like maybe like
Same.
just not even just streaming, but just like watching other people do it
Same.
live. Like it's such a new concept to me. And I remember watching it and I was like, this is number one, really informational for me, someone who's been around the block, so to speak, but also just great for like anyone new coming, but especially parents. Cause that's what you did was what I would have wanted to show my mom and dad 10 years ago. Like
Absolutely.
and it was so important to see that. And it was awesome to see. And I remember I heard you talk about, I believe on a stream, about how it was just like you had pitched it and it got accepted, and I was like, that's awesome, because that, like
Yeah.
you said, it hits an audience that like just didn't know that much about it. So that's, I loved it. I loved it. I love what it
Thank
stands for,
you.
and I hope you do plenty more because I think they're super important. So
There's so many different directions as well. Like there's so many other things you can talk about in games, and I think that's just what's so cool about them.
mhm.
And yeah, again, it's so important because like you said, your parents don't know. And I I think I spoke about this on stream once, but something to me that I've thought about a lot recently is how much of our current internet culture has stemmed from the fact that there weren't people sitting there telling us that's not okay. In so many aspects of our lives, like we are taught what standard is acceptable and what's not. But because our elders, like those that have come before us, had very much gone, well, we don't understand it and we don't know. It had been allowed to become this place that fed on a very different standard than what we set in real life.
Mhm.
And I think the sooner we can get parents in going, that's not okay, and punishing their children immediately when something's not on, I think that's only then when we'll actually start seeing a shift. But for now, it's adults going, well, I can say whatever I want because that's the standard that's been set by those that came before me. But it takes parents being comfortable enough to ask. And that can be a really tough thing. I was lucky my parents always cared. Like my mum always knew to check, okay, well, Amy, you wrote down what games you want, but what console do you need them on? Like
Mhm.
she learned very quickly what questions she needed to ask. Um, and so like my parents were always really open and cool with it. Like they were the ones that had the PlayStation when I was little. Like it certainly didn't come from nowhere. Like I watched them play, and admittedly it then became my hobby, and they fell off of it. But it's so important to give parents and teachers the tools to not just go, because a kid will very easily brush you off and go, oh mum, you don't get it, you don't understand. But if you came in during the match and went, oh, like you guys are down, how are you doing? Or if you knew what questions to ask, they're going to feel more comfortable to answer. And then that's again where more of a shift can start to happen too, is
Mhm.
when we just understand the conversation a bit better.
Yeah,
And
no,
that to
and
me is really important.
yeah, no, that's 100% something that like I felt like, as someone, like I talked about, as someone who had that kind of like lack of communication, understanding with my parents,
Mm.
like having that wall being broken down, and like because just in the time that I've, the past like 2 or 3 years, they've like, especially mom, she's become way more like, hey, like I'm more understanding of what this means to you and what you
Yeah.
do with it and what importance it has. So it's really, it's awesome to see that, and it's awesome that you're willing to take a leap and spark that conversation. So
Thank you.
it's wonderful. I want to ask your opinion on something.
Mm-hmm.
So it's not a story. So be ready.
Yep.
So here at the university, we've just launched our major new esports complex. A lot of it's new and a lot of it's upcoming, and we've partnered with Gen G esports and stuff like that. I want to ask, in your opinion, and it can be, it's obviously probably going to be different because you're all
Yep.
the way across the world. What does it mean to you to see a major university, whether in the United States or in the
Mm-hmm.
world, say we're going to take the initiative and we're going to start pushing esports programs, esports education? We have
Yep.
classes that are based around esports. We're getting ready to start a class this
Mm-hmm.
Tuesday that's based around streaming and teaching kids how to stream on Twitch. So, what does it
Very cool.
mean? Yeah, I'm excited for that myself. So, but I want to ask, what does it mean to you personally to see groups want to do that and universities and schools push that?
This isn't going to be the answer you're thinking, but in my opinion, something tangentially to that is I think it means we need to be ready for a big backlash.
Mm-hmm.
That to me is my first thought. We need to be prepared that we are now welcoming everyone, that it is now becoming something that is mainstream, that we accept. And that means we need to be prepared to fight for that and own that. And I'm excited though. I'm so excited. I'm like in Oz, there's quite a few unis that have started to embrace it. Like the uni I went to just after I left set up an esports space where they had computers with games on it so people could come in and use it and just start to learn more about it. And I'm so excited. My old professor that was the head of like the arts courses at my university. Like we were very close. Like he taught all of my classes, like the majority of my classes. And he reached out the other day asking me to come on board a digital advisory panel for the university as both an industry speaker and a former student. And so I'm really excited because I'm going to help get to shape that landscape in Canberra. And that's really exciting for me because it's so important. And it means we're at the point where it's about to become mainstream. And that's so cool, but kind of terrifying.
Mm-hmm.
So
I mean, 100% honest. That definitely was not the answer I was expecting. But I think I loved that answer more than the one that I was expecting. I mean, you're honestly 100% right. We're like, as someone who like is in it, it's really cool and it's this great thing. But I never really considered what you brought up of like, there's probably going to be a side of it that is going to be rough and we're going to have to deal with. And it kind of goes back to like, we're at that turning point where we're at this crossroads. We need to make these choices. And I'm excited for it, but I now that you've brought that into my mind, that's something that I need to consider for sure. And I agree with you 100%. There probably will be not consequences, but definitely some issues that arise for sure. So I do want to ask. Oh, you're good. I do want to ask, what is some advice, and this is going to be retrospective, what is some advice that you would give to yourself starting out in the games industry or just starting off in your career or wherever?
The first thing that always comes to my mind is like, stop worrying. You know you can. Like, stop worrying. You know that you've got it in you. Be fearless. Be loud. And show that. Be fearless. Be loud. And share as much of that voice with the world as you can. Because games are a strange and exciting place, and they are not as much as, like, they're not quite what you think they are, but they're exactly what you think they are, for good or bad. And just don't doubt it. Just don't doubt that you can do it.
That was beautiful. Honestly, 100% beautiful.
Thank you.
So, and kind of just the last question to wrap it all up. I do want to ask, what games are you playing right now, whether for review or just for fun or just something casual?
So I'm playing something for review. We can't talk about it when it's still under embargo. But something that, it's rare for me to have a real gripe with something, and I've got a real gripe with it because I can see its potential, and they've just made a couple of choices that just. So I'm not playing that anymore. I'm just going to write the review about it. I know that sounds so mean, and I'm not normally like that, but I'm just like, you had potential, and you made a really stupid choice.
I mean, you're a reviewer. You're allowed to do that. Those the thing. I feel the same way. Trust me. If I get a game that I'm really like, there was one a couple weeks ago that I was very not angry about, but just upset with in a similar sense.
Yeah.
And I was like, I don't want to be mean about this, but I kind of want to be mean about this.
But you kind of feel this need to. Yeah. So I started playing Hades on stream last weekend, and I'm definitely keen to play more of it on stream. It's definitely my kind of game. I really like it. It's definitely my style. I'm playing Valhalla at the moment, but I'm the type of person with open world games like that. I'm like, I am going for 100%, baby, nothing less. So I'm playing through that at the moment, and I play a lot of Path of Exile. Like, I just love Path of Exile, and the new League came out recently, so trying to work my way up and see if I can get a build good enough to do the new end game content. But yeah, nice. That's what I'm playing at the moment.
Nice. No, that's a stacked list, so I respect it. So, any parting thoughts for the audience or anything at all you'd like to add?
Oh, that's always the hardest question. If there's anything else you want to add, because you think maybe there's something I want to say, maybe there's not. One thing I'll just add is, if anyone out there that is listening or watching, wherever you may be, you will get told a lot of times and it's been interesting having different conversations about this. Like, one of the big things for me was where I was from. Like, everyone tells you, they're like, there are no jobs in games here. Like, it's really hard. You have to choose to be an indie or move. Like, that's kind of the reality. And that's okay, but it does make you really go, there is so little out there, and it can be really crushing to spend so long staring at applications that you never feel like you'll have the expertise or the experience to apply for. Throw that expectation out of the window as soon as you can and embrace any opportunity in games that you can. You can literally start at any time doing so many different aspects, whether it's something like streaming that interests you or editing videos. Make your own video guides. There's all sorts of things. But check out what kind of jobs are out there, because there are so many incredible opportunities, and you'll find that one day you'll wake up and just go, I can apply for all of these. And it's an unreal feeling that you don't feel like it happens almost overnight, but there'll have been a lot of work that's gone into that. So my advice is, as a parting thought, is just throw any expectation out of the window, but look at every job opportunity you can, because one day you will see the one that you tick every box for, and you'll know that that's where you're meant to be, because it is a very broad field, gaming. And so get excited about it and search for what you want to find in it, because it is out there. But don't be afraid to start, because it looks so daunting.
I think those are the best parting words I've ever heard, not only in an interview, but just in any conversation I've ever had in my life. Ladies and gentlemen, the Sass Queen herself, Sass Queen Amy Campbell, thank you so much.
No, thank you. Very humbled and grateful to have gotten to have just a really awesome conversation. So thank you for awesome questions.
Oh, thank you.